how do you play for a win with the black pieces? Well, nowadays it's pretty hard to play for a win with the white pieces. In a recently published article, Grandmaster Gregory Serper cited Bagirov when Bagirov was asked what or how should black handle the issue of being a tempo down. He said, if you want to play for a win against a weaker player, or a patzer with his words, just put the knight on e4 and win the game. And in the game we are going to look at, exactly this happened. Black put the knight on e4 and then used the very active knight to destroy white's position. But before we go to the game, you have a puzzle to solve. In this position right next to me, it is black to move. Which move would you play here with the black pieces? This being said, let's just go to the game and check your answer. FIDE Master Andrea Blasco-Coll plays knight to f3 with white, and Fernando Peralta, the Grandmaster, responds with knight to f6. White continues with c4, e6, knight to c3, d5, e3, b6, b3. And this looks very much like a setup from the white side, which Vincent Keimer is playing a lot recently, one of the strongest players of these days. Bishop to b7, bishop to b2, knight b to d7, and now rook to c1. White has developed all the pieces on the queen side, the rook, the bishop, and the knight, and hasn't developed so much the king side. The bishop on f1 is still on f1, and white hasn't castled. On the other hand, black followed a similar approach, has developed two pieces on the queen side, also from the queen side, and also one piece from the king side. And also here the bishop on f8 hasn't moved yet. And after rook to c1, black plays a6. At first this move looks a little bit strange, but the idea is that black wants to play bishop to d6, and in order not to get driven away by the knight on like a move like knight to b5, black just prevents this move and then puts the bishop on d6. So in the game, c takes d5 was played. And an alternative here is the move d4, but this would allow black in return to take on c4, and then black would have more choices here, and this is probably what white tried to avoid by exchanging on d5. However, it should be mentioned that both positions with d4 and also with c takes d5 have been played by Peralta himself from the white side. So the black player here knows exactly what he is doing, or at least we can assume that. And now e takes d5, of course, black wants to maintain some pawn presence in the center, so the e pawn takes not the knight, not the bishop, but the pawn. And now white plays d4, and this looks like a transposition into some minor lines of the Queen's Gambit. This being said, let's continue. Bishop to d6, bishop to d3, black castles, white castles, and now queen to e7, and now we can see black is increasing the control over the e4 square. What should white do here? White plays knight to e2, a very standard move. This knight on e2 is heading towards f4, usually in these structures. Now knight to e4. And as you can see, all the minor pieces of black have been moved once, but the knight on e4 here. So the bishop on d6 moved once, the knight on d7, and the bishop on b7, but this knight on e4 moved twice. On the other side, this knight on e2 jumped to c3, then to e2, so both sides spent each 2 tempi for the knights. And now knight to g3 was played. A little bit unusual because the normal move would be knight to f4. Now let's say black played f5, then knight e5 is a very interesting idea or move, and the idea is to disturb black's coordination, because after the very logical knight to e5, which is accepting the invitation to take on e5. There is, of course, only one move here for white, and this is regaining the piece by d takes e5. And now if we take a closer look, we will see that after bishop takes e5, the idea of white is to take on e4. Of course, taking the bishop on e5, exchanging the black squared bishops, would only lead to a loss of a pawn, which would be very bad for white, obviously. But with bishop takes e4, black hasn't the choice of taking on b2 because there's the very strong bishop takes d5 check, and now let's say bishop takes, which is pretty much forced, and white has the choice on regaining the piece by knight takes d5, or even queen takes d5, which comes with a check, is very unpleasant. So the king moves to h8, and then rook c2, and this pawn looks very weak. So this is not working for the black side. So what to play instead? So in this position, d takes e4 is a reasonable move, but then bishop takes e5, queen takes e5, and now you can see that black is up a pawn, but white has a lot of compensation because the black moves here and here aren't that strong, and this bishop on b7 is rather limited, while this knight is very strong. So although it's 6 against 7 pawns, white feels pretty good, and also white is slightly better developed. The rook is already on c1. Or a very logical continuation would be something like queen to c2, targeting this c7 pawn a second time, and losing the 7th rank isn't as pleasant for black. So let's go back. So this was the reason why knight to f4 had been a good move, but in this game knight to g3 was played instead. Then followed f5, a very good move because now knight to f5 isn't so active. Knight takes e5, pawn takes e5, bishop takes e5, and bishop takes e4 is just met with the move either f takes e4 or d takes e4, and in both cases the knight on g3 looks rather strange. Just compare the position with the knight on f4, which we had a look just a couple of moments ago. This knight on g3 doesn't look very strong, and black is up a healthy pawn. So let's go back. After f5, queen to c2 was played. Then followed rook to f7, and now white came up with a very strange idea. Of course, black is already fighting for an advantage, or fighting to increase the advantage, but the position of white isn't that bad yet. So white could have played something like a3 and just stayed calm. Instead, white played b4. And the idea, of course, is that taking on b4 isn't good because white can take on c7, so this is not working. However, black just prepares taking on b4, and now white should play a move like a3, and this doesn't look very healthy for white, and the position is great for black. However, in the game knight to e2 followed, and then black just happily grabbed the pawn. Then followed knight to e5, and now knight takes e5, d takes e5. And with the move c5, black is threatening to overrun white on the queen side. Just look at these pawns. Doesn't look very nice for white. So a3 was played, bishop to a5, knight to f4, activating the knight. And as you can see, the knight went to g3, then went back to e2 and was played to f4. probably just saying, okay, the idea was wrong, let's regroup the knight. However, this cost 2 tempi and this is just too slow. So now rook to d8, again playing in the center. Now f3 was played, and this is weakening the e3 pawn. So black has the very strong bishop to d2. And now f takes e4 was the crucial mistake. Bishop takes e3 check, king to h1, and after f takes e4, white just decided to resign here in move 23. But why did white resign here? Well, let's take a look. Bishop e2, then rook takes f4, rook takes f4, bishop takes f4. Now this pawn is weak and the pawns are just rolling while the material is clearly in black's favor. So a very beautiful game by Fernando Peralta, by the strong grandmaster, where he punished this inaccuracy with knight to g3. And although white recognized that the knight belongs to f4, it was already too late. I hope you liked this video. If you did so, you will love this next video. If you want to support the channel, feel free to leave a like or hit the subscription button in order to see more of such content. See you in the next video.